All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Worst Movie Ever. Just gonna do. There we go. Yep. Welcome to Worst Movie Ever, a discussion of entirely subjectively the worst movies we have ever seen. I am Liz. I am the adult. Wow. I am the adult programming coordinator and reference librarian at the Derry Public Library. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi there, I'm Eric Stern. I'm the director of the Derry Public Library. Who's next?
I'm Mark. I like movies.
And Todd.
I'm Todd. I'm just this guy.
Todd and Mark are the people we roped into this respectively.
Hey,
Yes.
I got roped into this.
Well, yes. And Ellie, since you're giving just a quick intro,
I'm here because of nepotism.
well, at least you're conscious of it, unlike Lily Rose Depp.
That's a talk for another time.
And also, just again, programming note, Ellie is going to be joining us next month, and she's going to be subbing in for Todd in February.
So since you brought her up, I do need to say Yoga Hosers was an honorable mention for my list.
Oh, it didn't make it?
No, not for lack of trying.
Oh, geez. I thought that was a sure thing. So, just to full disclosure to everyone, while we may know some of each other's picks, we do not know the full list. I know Todd's number one. I know one of Eric's. But other than that, we've been kind of keeping it a secret for each other. So what we're going to do is each one of us is going to give our picks and then have a little quick discussion afterwards if anyone wants to go like, I totally agree, or you're bonkers for putting that on your list. And then once the four of us are done, we might have a bigger discussion with all of you who have joined us. And I would like to say just up front, this is entirely subjective. It is okay to like a movie. Well, most movies. There's some I'm side-eyeing you if you like. Cough, cough, Lolita. I'm sorry. It's just weird. That's a movie.
That's a different kind of side-eye, though.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would say if you're like, I appreciate it but don't like it. I'm okay. Guess that's fine. But yeah, for the most part, these are not value judgments on you if you end up liking these movies. It's perfectly okay. So, does anyone want to go first? Because wait, no, Ellie, you go first.
Ellie, yeah.
Oh, I'm going first? Oh, Christ.
Hold the pen.
Well, you have a number one pick that every time I have heard you describe why it is your worst movie, I love hearing you describe it. So I would like to have you open this discussion with why your worst movie ever is the worst movie ever.
I think you're actually going to be surprised by my number one pick. It's in number two now.
Oh, no!
I am going to make two qualifying statements. The first is that, people always put movies like The Room or Showgirls on their worst movies of all time. I don't truck with that because, I like The Room. I like watching it. I like showing with other people. It is not a movie that I dislike at all. So I really have to dislike a movie for it to end up on my worst movies of all time list. And my second caveat is there's a class of movies that don't really exist so much as art pieces as they exist as a barrage of completely abhorrent content for you to endure. And I never want to watch those movies. I hate that they exist. But on the other hand, I can't really claim that they're not doing what they're setting out to do. So I don't really put them on these lists either.
So Gaspar Noé's work.
Yeah. Actually, worse than him. I actually like a lot of Gaspar Noé's movies.
Round 6.
I like Enter the Void. I think I liked Climax. I still don't know. On topic. So my fifth worst is probably just gonna have to be Jurassic World. I find the other two of the Jurassic World sequels very amusing, but this one I was just like, it was one of the most exhausting theater experiences I've ever had. On that note, and I'm lucky that this is probably not going to get much of an audience, or I would die for this. Number 4 is Batman v Superman. It's like 3 hours long. It's very boring. I don't like any of the characters. I don't like any of the acting choices being made. It's just not a very good movie. Yeah, here comes number 3. Oh God, I was thinking that number 3 was probably going to be Sleepaway Camp, for reasons that I think are pretty obvious if you know the movie.
Mhm.
Number 2 is the one Liz thought would be my number 1, which is Jack and Jill, the Adam Sandler movie.
I believe you once described it as the absence of anything good.
It is the absence of, it is anti-art. I almost want to respect it as like something Dadaist, but it's not. And number 1 is Lokisha.
Oh God.
There's the reaction. Honorable mention goes to The Fanatic, which is an excruciating movie, but also hysterical. Directed by the lead singer of Limp Bizkit, if any of you are over the age of 30.
I am shaking my fist at you now because I completely forgot about Lucretia, and I'm not changing my list now, but oh man, that's at least make an honorable mention.
It's a movie and a half.
I'm happy to say I've never seen it.
Oh,
You're
it's.
lucky.
How do you feel about watching a movie where a white dude decides he's going to go on the radio doing verbal blackface as a black woman, and everyone's like, "You're a genius for doing this."
Yeah,
When
that
was
doesn't
this
make-
made?
That doesn't make
Like
me feel
3
very
years ago.
comfortable.
Yeah, it's like
How
somebody
was this
said-
made 3 years ago?
It's like somebody went, "We're gonna mash up Tootsie with
Yeah.
Soul Man, and we're not gonna stop and go, should we do this?"
But I don't understand in the last 10 years how that even got made. That's crazy.
It was
It's
so-
crazier. Look up the other film that guy made. I think
Yeah.
this man
It's,
might
the
be
director
a
is
sociopath.
also the lead actor. Is the
Oh
answer?
my goodness.
Well, there you go.
So I just choose to believe that Loquisha is not a real movie and that Todd and Ellie are just playing a very elaborate prank on me.
That's what I think Riverdale
like
is,
that.
though.
What?
You could, yeah, I'd buy it.
It's the Mandela effect. You live in a world without it.
Yeah, no, I,
Tumblr literally just invented an entire Martin Scorsese movie.
Oh geez,
last
that's
month.
right.
So who knows? Maybe I'm just lying to you.
I'll
Awesome.
never know because I'll never watch it.
Someday.
All right, and with that, I will thank you, Ellie, for getting us started off.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you.
And I guess I will go next because I believe one of my choices will probably get the most ragging. So number 5, Rob Zombie's Halloween. Kind of like what Ellie said about Jurassic.
Yes.
Just
Thank you.
Hate
or
it.
Dominion. It's just a very excruciating experience. I did not pay to see it. My boyfriend at the time had rented it. He got it from his job. We were watching it at his house, and I still felt like I wanted my money back. It's just one of the most unpleasant experiences I have had watching a movie. It's ugly. What Rob Zombie does sometimes works. It does not work here, and it just. I don't need the backstory of Michael Myers. It's fine.
There you go. There
I
you
don't
go.
need it. And it's just, there's just so much and I can't believe I'm saying this. There's so much just unnecessary violence in this. But yeah, no, it's a gross movie. I don't like it. I heard Halloween 2 is good and I like some of Rob Zombie stuff. But
You didn't
I
see
think-
Halloween 2?
I think Rob Zombie's Halloween
worse.
2 is like my 3rd favorite Halloween
Oh,
movie.
God, I thought it was worse than this first one.
All I remember about that movie is Brad Dourif gives a good performance in it, and that's about it.
Look, if you want to never take my opinion on the Halloween franchise seriously, my 2nd favorite Halloween movie is Halloween 3. So
oh yeah,
No, that's fine.
don't just
Yeah.
ignore me. I'm deranged.
A lot of people feel that way now, though.
yeah, movie rules. Number 4, God's Not Dead, and kind of a stand-in for a lot of those types of movies. And this is not supposed to be a blanket statement about like, oh, films about religion are dumb. It is absolutely possible to make great movies about faith. Prince of Egypt, Martin Scorsese's Silence, Last Temptation of Christ, Flowers of St. Francis, there's a lot of great movies that do deal with that aspect of our lives. The movies that come out on PureFlix, they are not meant to be art. They're not meant to explore anything. They are meant to be propaganda, and they're not even well-made propaganda. You can make good propaganda, and it's like you can't even do that. It's it's not good. I also find the universe in which these worlds like this, Last House of Courage, exist in, where they're somehow the most oppressed people ever, yet everybody agrees with them. And I'm like, well, how are you both the popular girl and the victim at the same time? I'm not getting it. And, not just to say otherwise, the acting's bad, the cinematography's bad. God's Not Dead does have one saving grace, and that is Kevin Sorbo hilariously getting hit by a car. Just whoever did the stunt work on that, good job, because I laughed. But they're really just stand-ins for things I hate, which are movies that are not meant to explore anything. They are just meant to be, again, preach to the choir, be propaganda. And the older I get, the more tired of that I get. I mean, again, I'd rather watch something like Silence, which is 3 hours long and a sad movie, but I'm like, well, at least that's asking some questions. Number 3, and this is where people are going to get angry. I absolutely hate Robert Zemeckis' The Polar Express. Hate. And this is not me being a Grinch.
Who's gonna get angry at that?
I don't agree, but I can't argue with you.
And this isn't me being a Grinch. I do like Christmas. It's my second favorite holiday after Halloween. Todd can attest, I like Christmas movies. I like getting in the spirit. And I was actually really interested in this movie when it came out because my mother loves this book, and I have a lot of memories from my childhood of being read this book. And I appreciate the book more as an adult. It's a beautiful book. It's bittersweet. It's not saccharine. There's a sadness to it. This movie takes all of the beauty and the subtleness of that book and just chucks it out the window for like hot chocolate musical numbers, Eddie Deason, Dead-Eyed Kids. There are Steven Tyler Aerosmith elves. Just,
I'm scared. Get me out of there.
yeah, it is. There were a couple of other bad book adaptations on my list. Zack Snyder's Watchmen almost got on there. It was saved by good casting choices, and it at least looked good, but Polar Express for me is the worst adaptation I've had of a work. And it's just even the end of that movie, which is, if you read the book, it comes across as like a very sad, quiet, melancholic ending. The movie ends it with this like big bombastic score, and I'm just like, oh no. And for some reason it's just become a new Christmas classic, and I'm like, why? Who asked for this? And again, it's okay to like it, but just for me personally, it is just taking everything I love about that story and just going like, nope, bye. Also, I hate the Josh Groban song that comes with it almost as much as that movie. And so I will take Whamageddon. I will take Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas song. I will take that absolutely over the Josh Groban Believe song.
As long as it's not the Paul McCartney song. I can't deal with that one.
Yeah. All right. Number 2, and I don't think I'll get a lot of pushback here. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Wow, that's high.
That's
for you.
That is higher than I was expecting.
But good for you. Well done.
Because that is a movie I have only seen it once in theaters, and I tried to convince myself I liked it at first. I did that with The Phantom Menace. I actually think I did it with Polar Express too, because I just did not want to deal with the disappointment of not liking this movie.
I'm sorry to say that I've seen that movie twice.
But here's the thing, having seen it once, I still remember how much I disliked it. It has
the monkeys.
Kate Blanchett in that movie. I love Kate Blanchett and everything. It's like, why are you doing
Remember how
she's like the one saving grace of that movie for me.
Remember how for a brief time there was a scene in that movie which basically became like shorthand for when your movie is crap to the bed?
Honestly,
fridge, nuking the fridge.
Honestly, sincerely, I haven't turned around. Like I turned around on a lot of very bad movies. I actually turned around on Batman and Robin very recently.
Okay.
But I haven't turned around on Indiana Jones 4, but I have turned around on that scene because, like, Jesus, at least it's doing something. You might notice that my like big complaint about all my movies, like they bored me to tears.
Well, yeah, like I was actually saying beforehand, you'll notice that a lot of these movies are new. And It's not because I don't watch older films, but older bad movies are interesting. There's something there for you to chew on. They're interesting failures. Whereas a movie like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, there's no passion behind it. You got the sense that David Koepp and Steven Spielberg and even Harrison Ford are just all there because they were told to be. There's no passion behind it. It's so lifeless. And I mean, the one good thing coming out about Indiana Jones 5, which I do not have high hopes for, is it looks like they are just retconning Ford. They're like, Mutt does not exist. Maybe he's still with Karen Allen. That'd be fine. But Yeah, no. Indiana Jones having a child is just not something I needed. I get that it probably would have happened in real life, but you know what? These are movies. We don't need this. And my number one is one that probably most people have not heard of unless they are fans of the podcast We Hate Movies. And that is a little film called Easy Rider 2: The Ride Back.
Oh my,
It changes you.
It changes you. Yes.
I can't remember
So
a
you
thing
might
about
be
that
ask-
movie.
You might be asking yourself, what do you mean there's a sequel for Easy Rider? Well, somehow, I don't know if someone paid Dennis Hopper's estate, but this lawyer decided to get a bunch of friends together and make a sequel to Easy Rider. What is it about, you ask? How can there be a sequel? Didn't they both die at the end of that? Well, it's all about Peter Fonda's character's family. It's about his brother who lives in Mexico and somehow went and retrieved his bike. And then it's about another brother named Virgil who went to Vietnam. And then it's about his sister and his Vietnam, no, not Vietnam, but World War II veteran dad. Why?
And 9/11.
Oh, yeah, and the
And
sky.
there's a random homicide that just kind of gets ignored.
Yeah, there's a homicide. This is an actual line from this film. When this main character is talking about his brother, Peter Fonda's character, he's talking about the day they were killed. Now, keep in mind, this character was a child when this happened, but he said, quote, "The sky was crystal blue, just like 9/11.
oh my God.
Well, and here's the thing. This movie isn't boring. This movie absolutely falls into what I would call a fascinating failure because you can't not watch this stuff. It's so strange. This has to be some person's singular vision. But it's also just such a slap in the face to a film that changed American cinema as we know it. It is everything good about Easy Rider is just taken away, and then we have this monstrosity. It's like something came back wrong. But I actually would recommend seeing it. It's a seeing is believing.
Mhm.
Trainwreck.
Yeah, Trainwreck. Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
Unlike Crystal Skull, which I would just say skip it. Maybe
So
I
my
should've-
comment on Crystal Skull, I remember when it came out and my review to people was it's worse looking than the Mummy sequels, which are supposed to be ripoffs
Shots
of Indiana
fired.
Jones. And they don't even do it as well as the Mummy Returns. I mean,
Oh.
that's how unacceptable that Indiana Jones sequel is.
It is. It's
My comment that I wanted to make is I did see in a recent theater excursion an ad for one of those like super Christian, Pure Flix movies. I want you to guess, Liz and Todd, especially since they know what movies I've seen, what movie it was at.
it was either something that kind of fit in or it was the exact opposite. Like,
Exact opposite.
did you go to Pearl and see an ad for Life Mark?
I still haven't seen X or Pearl.
Ah,
I know. I'm kind of like doing a bit now.
Pearl's amazing.
I know they're both good. I'm doing it gets funnier the longer I don't see it.
Wait.
It was Bones and All. It was Bones and
Okay,
All.
I was about to say it's because at first I was about to say on the vein of doing a bit, it's like, oh geez, you didn't check out Terrifier 2, did you?
That's
I
the
mean,
projectionist having fun with people.
Yeah,
I
that's-
mean, I think Terrifier 2 falls into the category of movies that are just a barrage of unbearable content.
Of wonderfulness.
If that's your bag, have a good
No
time. They're
best
not my
makeup
bag.
Oscar.
I think Best Makeup should at this point go to X because the makeup Mia Goth is wearing is amazing.
No, that one scene in Terrifier 2. Best
I mean-
practical effects since American Werewolf in London.
Tall order. But I was actually shocked. I figured more people would get mad at Polar Express, but I have
Well,
met-
I like
Yeah.
Polar Express, but I mean, even seeing it, I'm like, half the people who see this are gonna hate it. I get it. It's mostly because the animation, the dead eyes.
Yeah, well, for me, it's also content. It's one where I just feel everything I love about that book isn't there. And ultimately, I see it as like, this is a better example, even more so than the Ron Howard Grinch or that really awful Cat in the Hat movie, of why you should not take
Mark and I were just talking about that movie. the
big
other day.
children's books and make them into feature-length films. Let's bring back the 30-minute Christmas specials. I'll watch them. Give me a 30-minute Polar Express.
Yeah.
It would be great.
Eric and I were talking about how Where the Wild Things Are, Babe 2, and Cat in the Hat could fit one spot of just bizarre. They didn't do it right. It's nightmare fuel kids movies.
Oh, see, I actually kind of like the Wire, the Where the Wild
Me too,
Things.
yeah.
That almost made my worst 5. I hate that movie so much.
I mean, I might go back and rewatch it. Maybe I'll change my. But there was a part of me that kind of it felt more not like a children's movie, but a movie for people who were children once.
Oh yeah, completely. But it wasn't, advertised. That's
So you go in and you're like, why am I crying? And why is my kid bored?
I'm a big fan of this film critic on YouTube who basically posited that like that really famous shot in Castaway where they had to pause production for 6 months for Tom Hanks to lose a bunch of weight. Like that shot broke Robert Zemeckis's brain. And now he's like, I can't ever let a human mess with human cost mess with my ability to make movies ever again. That's why he got really into God. Oh man, Welcome to Marwen was a finalist for my.
He's one of 3 directors where looking
it's been bizarre since then. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's one of 3 directors where looking
When
go
did we
is
lose
the
him
CGI
officially?
fixation a unresolved control issue.
Mhm.
He's made one good movie, and it's very unlike him as well as Flight,
I didn't
which
dig
is very
Flight.
un-Zemeckis like.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. Like I've hated most of the stuff he's made since Castaway. I didn't hate Flight, but I didn't really get it either. It was like, okay.
But it wasn't a Zemeckis film. It's very different than his.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
That sure
didn't
was-
hate The Walk, but I just found it really kind of forgettable.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He did do
Beowulf,
that.
Same thing.
Beowulf is such a weird example because it's like it's got a really good script, but that animation, that
It's terrible.
freaking
Yeah.
animation.
Again,
Oh,
yeah.
Alrighty, I think we need to move on. I think at this point I'll just do alphabetical order. So Eric, you're next.
Okay, so one overlapping film so far, and I'll get that one out of the way first, even though it's my number 2. Thank you,
Ooh.
Liz. Also my number 2, Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So, I mean, it's hard to imagine me putting a Steven Spielberg movie on this list, but I really look at that movie as just the ultimate phoned in experience. Like that there's nothing joyous in that movie. And I know he opens and closes every one of his shoots with a glass of champagne. Well, he should have just ended with that first glass of champagne and just called it at that point. That movie is just a disaster. I've watched it twice. I watched it once in the theater and then once with my son. And even that experience of him kind of enjoying it just on a very superficial level wasn't enough for me to take it off this list.
Oof.
And after the fact, even he was like, that movie wasn't really good. And he was like 7 years old at the time that he saw it. So, I mean, that's telling.
Eric's kids are great at movie reviews.
Yeah.
Your daughter's review of Dumbo is my favorite. I think I like the original one better.
Did Tim Burton know he was making a movie for kids? Yeah, that's what she said. I was like, okay. So my number 5, I think would appear on some other people's worst lists. A whopping 2.8 on the IMDb. It's 2019 Cats, directed by
Ooh.
Tom Hooper.
Oh, I love Cats too much to put it on the worst list.
Oh,
It was by the end of that showing, I was like giggling slightly crazily.
I couldn't find anything really enjoyable in that movie, honestly. Like I like the music in Cats. I never really got there's not really much of a story there. That's not the point. But I just found so much of it to be cringy and just hard to watch. Like I just could not enjoy any of it. And to me, like you're saying, like a movie like The Room, I love, movies like that, where you can really laugh at them and treat them as comedies, but I couldn't really do that the one time I saw Cats. So that for me is my number 5. My number 4 is one that my son actually reminded me of just the other day, as I thought I had this list completely nailed down. And this displaced Battlefield Earth from my list. That was my number 5, and that got bumped. And it's a direct to Disney Plus movie that was released last year, Home Sweet Home Alone, which
Oh, I forgot about that.
is probably the worst example of comedy that I can think of. I just found that movie to be. Todd, you like that movie?
I can't believe it exists.
Yeah, seriously, is this another LaQuisha? Is this another prank?
I could not believe that the writer of Borat, which I find to be pretty funny, directed this movie and did it in such a manner that they tried to twist the conventions around in such a way that now you have a sympathetic husband and wife who are trying to save their home, and have to basically break into a kid's house to steal back something that they believe that the kid stole from their open house. And instead of torturing a couple of like cartoonish villains, you're spending the last third of the movie torturing a mom and dad who are trying to defend their house. So my son was watching this movie with me, and he was crying watching this movie as these horrible acts were being committed against a husband and wife who are trying to save their house. It made absolutely no sense. And the fact that someone actually thought this was comical is kind of hard to fathom. So Home Sweet Home Alone takes the number 4 spot.
Ooh.
Number 3, one that definitely would fit into what you had said earlier, is movies that are just kind of graphic for the sake of shock value. But for me, it was a movie that it never landed anything. And I can appreciate some of those movies. Some of the Jackass movies I find to be really funny on a really stupid level, but I can still watch them and enjoy them. This is 2001's Freddy Got Fingered.
There you go.
This movie is so bad. Liz, you've got to watch the Roger Ebert review.
I have seen
this
it.
movie, where he's describing the scene where Tom Green is swinging the baby around by the umbilical cord and then revives it. It's so appalling. Mark, I mean, I think you
I
agree
saw
on
that at
this.
a press screening in college.
I cannot believe
You can't
that
get it out of your head.
I can't believe he got away with what he got away with in that movie. The wearing around of the deer carcass and all of that stuff. It was just absolutely disgusting. So that one fits in at number 3. You already know my number 2.
Mhm.
And number 1, which is the highest rated on the IMDb of all of my movies. But I just can never forgive what this movie did to a franchise that I loved, both the first and second film, and that is David Fincher's Alien
Oh, wow.
3. It is
Oh.
far and away the worst movie I've ever seen for the first 5 minutes. You kill 2 characters that you spent an entire movie developing before the first lines of the film are even delivered. And that to me is just a cardinal sin of movie making. You totally disrespected the prior director's vision. I happen to be a big James Cameron fan, but irrespective of that, to do that to 2 characters before the first lines of the film are delivered, just awful. So that's my
I
number
think
1.
Eric will remember in the summer of '91, the trailer for Alien 3, the teaser,
Oh,
showed
yeah.
the planet Earth and said, "This time they're coming home," and
Mhm.
suggested that Alien 3 would be this big epic on Earth. It's like
Yeah,
they didn't even know at that point what
They
they were
did.
Production
making,
history
but that's
of
what they got
3
everyone
is-
excited for.
Yeah, the production history on 3 is genuinely fascinating.
Ugh.
I used at one point in like 2017, I was in the pitch process for a book about the Alien franchise, and I did a lot of research, and essentially they were completely altering the movie basically right up until shooting. David Fincher originally said like he was done directing after making it, because he really didn't like the movie.
Yeah.
I like Aliens a lot, but I think it kind of ruined the Alien franchise, because Alien, a horde of aliens comes to Earth is the only place the franchise can escalate from there. And I don't
Right.
think the Alien franchise should escalate. I think,
Right.
I don't know. I can't really hate Alien 3. The franchise has just been so bad ever since then.
I
But they
mean,
can't.
funny enough,
I don't know.
actually,
At least it was swinging at something. At least it took a big swing at something.
I will actually say Resurrection almost made my list. It got dethroned by another title, which we will get to when we get there.
And I would just like to
Resurrection
say-
was on my honorable mentions. That movie I thought could have salvaged it, and no. Mark and I had the experience of seeing that together in Manchester when that
hated
came
that
out.
movie too.
I find Alien Resurrection fascinating, if only because I don't know why Sigourney Weaver and Winona Ryder decided that their performances would be desperately wants to sleep with Winona Ryder and scared of how much she wants to sleep with Sigourney Weaver, but those are the performances they're giving.
I actually
No,
don't
they
think
are. It's
I
totally
don't
true.
think I ever saw Resurrection. But I will say Prometheus was definitely in the running for my top 5.
That's
but
also a movie I hate.
Prometheus at least has 2 things going for it. Kind of like Watchmen, where I'm like, well, it looks really good. I'll
Yes.
give it that. And
Mhm.
it has the scene in the med bed, which
I was
the
about to
med-
say the body
Yep.
horror thing I thought of when you guys did the
Yeah.
body horror special.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the med bed scene where Numi Rapace is like, I gotta get this little sucker out of me immediately is a great
It's,
scene.
it's terrifying.
And
Yeah,
it's,
it's a great
shot,
scene.
it's shot really well too. He doesn't go for wide shots here. He's going for that close, like you're inside with her. Also, I love Numi Rapace. I think she's a fantastic actress. If you ever see her in the Swedish Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series,
yeah.
or
Yeah, she's great.
Lamb that came out last year, she's fantastic. And
Yep.
I don't know if she's just not a good actress in English because it's not her first language, or she
Mm.
just did not get good parts, but just wasted in America. Like just her potential was never, I think it's probably the Marion Cotillard situation where in her native language, she's great. In English or just a language that's not hers, she is so hit or miss, but not everyone can be Penelope Cruz, who is just, or actually conversely, Ron Perlman, who did performances in languages he didn't know just phonetically and manages to deliver good performances. Yeah, Prometheus was up there. Because that was still a waste of my god dang time and money. All right, and with
Excellent list, Eric.
Thank you.
Indeed.
and with
You're
this,
up
we're
next,
gonna-
I think, Mark.
yeah, go to Mark.
All right. So 4 of my 5 movies are objectively bad. 1 is emotionally bad. So my number 5, in 3rd grade, my dog passed away the day they showed us Old Yeller at school.
Yike.
Ooh.
I
I'm
hate
sorry.
that movie. That movie should not exist. So
That is
yeah,
an
we
act of
saw
cruelty on the
Old
teacher's
Yeller,
part.
came home, and my dog had been put to sleep. So
That's
I-
kind of like
That's
when
awful.
I saw Rockadoodle and then came
Yeah.
home to find my fish dead. I will never watch Rockadoodle again because of that.
no, I
It's-
collect Blu-rays. I collect classic movies. I will never get the limited edition of Old Yeller. It doesn't need to be on my shelf.
Yeah.
It's a whole subgenre of like books for
I'll
kids.
never see Marley and Me for the same
Like-
reason.
What is the one?
Redfern Grows.
Yes, where it's like 2/3 of this book is just like a kid coming of age, and then suddenly one of the dogs gets annihilated by a mountain lion. And you're just like,
All right, so number 4 is one of the few and the first of the few movies I walked out of the theater on, and I'll
Ooh.
probably get some blowback on this,
I
which
think I
is
know what it
Natural
is.
Born Killers.
Yep, I knew it would be.
I am a big fan of Quentin Tarantino. I'm a big fan of Oliver Stone, and I feel like they, in an attempt to make a satire about violence, they made at the time one of the most violent movies of all time, and so they made the opposite of what they were trying to do, and the movie's just stupid and unwatchable. I mean, the point where Rodney Dangerfield's hinting that he's molesting his daughter with a laugh track is just like, I gotta get out of here. I'm done. Everyone's done better since then, and I did eventually watch the last half so I could say I've seen the movie, but I hate that film. My number 3 is a Best Picture nominee, which I don't usually find things offensive, but I don't understand how more people don't find this movie offensive. I laughed out loud when the twist in this movie was revealed, and that's the 2008 movie The Reader that Kate Winslet won Best Actress for,
Yep.
which
it was
suggests to the world that being illiterate is more shameful than being a Nazi. That's the point of that movie.
That movie's trash.
And
I've never seen
not
it.
only is the movie revered, but it's based on a book that's classic and people think is amazing. And the
Well,
movie's
one thing-
what makes it worse is the movie's well done. She gives a great performance, and then they reveal the big moment that she's illiterate, and we have to keep it a secret. And I really started laughing out loud because I was like, you know what? That people aren't thinking, are they just going along with this and crying because it's just so stupid.
The one thing I will give that movie is it kind of became the great final punchline to that on Kate Winslet's appearance on that show Extras, where she talks about like the entire idea of Holocaust movies, an easy way to win an Oscar, and then she goes and proves just that.
Yeah. And I mean, there's another Stephen
Here it
Daldry
comes.
movie that almost made my list because I also hate The Hours, and that's one of my least favorite film
I love The
experiences
Hours,
I've
I'm
ever
I
had.
sorry.
agree.
Oh my god, I that movie is less than 1 star for me, but it doesn't offend me the way the reader does. The reader's just completely offensive. My number 2 from I'm trying to catch up on 80s movies that I somehow missed. And there's one from 1981 that has Steve Martin and it has Bernadette Peters and it's a musical. There's no way I'm going to hate Pennies from Heaven. Pennies from Heaven is going to be amazing. Pennies from Heaven is the worst musical ever made. That movie is so bad. It's got
Than Good
marital
Vibrations?
rape. What?
Worse Than Good Vibrations, the Beach Boys musical.
Well, I didn't see that one, but I don't know if that one has 2 rape scenes, Folsom Prison. I mean, the movie is just filled with things that are just you just want to take a shower after you watch this. And it's filled with depression era music, which makes it even more of this like nightmare world. I don't know. It's a movie filled with talent that I absolutely hated.
A Nightmare World, you're kind of selling me on it.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean,
And
there's
then my
certain
number
appeal.
1, it's funny when we were making this list, I didn't think of this at first because I'd blacked it out of my mind. Without question, I think When I Die, this will still be my number 1 because it is not only what I think is the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's the worst idea, and they didn't even do that bad idea correctly. And that's Gus Van Sant's supposedly shot-by-shot remake of Psycho. Which A, isn't even a shot-by-shot remake because he adds things that he doesn't need to add. And then B, that idea is so stupid anyway. If you want to remake Casablanca, that's a bad idea. But at least because of, theater, people want to see different groups of generations play different parts. But you wouldn't need to do it shot by shot. That makes it so inept. So there's no point to it. And for me, that's the worst movie ever made. I don't see anything ever beating it for me.
Well, I mean, there is the discussion of remakes, especially now when it seems like they're remaking more and more just because culture is all just about nostalgia and existing IPs at this point. But I'll always be the first person to say you can do a remake well. You just have to put your own spin on it. I mean, I'll defend Jonathan Demme's remake of The Manchurian Candidate. I think it's flawed. It's nowhere near as good as the original, but I'm like, it at least tries something different. It has Jonathan
The Thing.
Demme-
You
The
can do it.
The
Thing, Charlie
78
Kaufman's
edition of
Body
The
Snatchers.
I love the 70s Body Snatchers one. Yeah.
Also, Soderbergh's Ocean's 11.
Oh, that's great. That's actually
Because the
better.
original
Yeah,
kind of sucks.
Better than the
that's
original.
true.
Also, Cronenberg's The Fly.
Speaking of Cronenberg or roundabout Cronenberg, I was surprised. Speaking of Oscar winners, I was surprised that Liz's list didn't include Crash.
It was close. It was close.
I have a friend who, like, the story he tells is in like middle of 2004, his mother comes home with Crash on DVD. Oh, do you want to watch this? Thinking it's the critically acclaimed drama, and he knows that it's too
It's
early
the
for that
car
movie to be on.
movie?
It is.
Yeah.
It's
He's
the
about
car
to have
movie.
to watch James Spader freaking dry hump that lady's
All I
car.
gotta say is, no matter how bad it is, if James Spader's in a movie, I kind of like it.
Well, here's-
Crash 1996 is an incredible.
Yeah,
film.
Crash 96 is great. Crash 2004 is the one I hate. And it was
Like,
it
I
was
think
on my
James
honorable mention.
Spader. I think James Spader's worst movie is probably Jack's Back, but even that is somewhat watchable.
The Crash 2004 versus 1996 did lead to a funny exchange between Ellie and I one time. She was texting me. She was like, "What's your address? I need to send you your Christmas present, which is the 2004 version of Crash." And I don't you joke like that.
I was genuinely considering, like, can I get a DVD copy of this and put your, like, the Blu-ray I got you of the 96 Crash inside?
The effort we've put into, like, kind of trying to prank each other is ridiculous. But no, the Gus Van Sant Psycho, I think, is a very good choice. And if
Good
you ever
choice.
want an example of how to not remake something, even more than I would say the Rob Zombie's Halloween remake, I'm like, yeah, right there. That's what you don't do.
I do
Is it-
unfortunately own it because I got that awesome German set that had like every cut of every Psycho movie, but they included that one. So I was like, oh, I guess I have to now own this movie.
Like, it's a movie. It's, as remakes go, it's the one that ultimately trips on the big first question: why?
Why?
Why? Exactly.
He said in an interview once that he did it so no one else would, basically, which I found an interesting answer. I don't know. I love Gus too much.
Oh,
Like,
no, I do too.
My Own Private Idaho is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I love him too much to like put one of his movies on my worst. Although even Cowgirls Get the Blues is unwatchable.
What's that movie he did? Was it Cherry? Oh,
I was about to say
It's
no
a
one
great
gonna go
movie,
back
and
to
no,
Jerry.
I'm not going to elaborate.
maybe I need to rewatch it, but I
No,
watched
you don't. Your first instinct is correct. It's unwatchable, but it's also a great movie.
already. With that, I think we're gonna go to Todd. Take us home.
So before I announce my list, number one, I'm gonna say most of these the ranking is a little liquid, and in a couple of these cases, I picked these titles to be emblematic of what I consider to be certain cinematic sins. We will get to those as we come to them. Like there were a lot of films I would have picked for the same reason by looking when I feel like this is the purest example of what I think this is doing wrong. And then there's what I'm kicking this list off with, which is a movie which, if any of you have seen this, I will be stunned. It is it's a horror film called Smiley. And the fact that I'm not seeing any recognition, this is a good sign. This is a horror movie about the internet, starring a guy who made his big name on YouTube that was written by somebody who does not understand the internet.
How dare you
Like-
remind me of that movie?
It's basically, it's fittingly enough, I was actually kind of reminded of this when we were seeing the movie Smile this year, because both films suffer from the highly derivative nature of it's a curse movie that has very clearly seen so many other curse films and it is just aping them mercilessly. This one rips off Ringu in the same style. We start off with a victim and then we kick off. In this case, it is a monster that lives on the internet and it goes after anybody who, in a Bloody Mary fashion, types the phrase, "I did it for the lulz" 5 times. You hear actors say that phrase repeatedly. They speak in meme talk so often. It's like, it is one of the most butthole clenching, embarrassing things I have ever watched. And the fact they somehow roped Keith David into it just makes it worse.
Hey, Keith
Oh.
David has to get paid.
Oh, no.
Keith David will
Yeah,
do
like,
whatever
I
you pay him to
hope he
do.
had-
Mm.
I hope that he at least got a nice upgrade to his house, just like with the money he got from that.
It's doing movies like that will allow him to do movies like Nope, and sacrifices must be made.
It's almost as seeing as believing, but I would not say it's worth the effort of seeking it out. Like if you can find it for free on a streaming service, maybe, but don't go too hard for it. Okay, so number 4, you never forget your firsts. That one movie that completely managed to snap through your childlike innocence and make you go, "Oh, this is bad." It's 1999's Jan de Bont remake of The Haunting.
Yes.
Now, I will say this much. My youthful plausible deniability, it endured a beating that summer. It got through The Phantom Menace and Wild Wild West, shaky but ultimately intact. Midway through seeing The Haunting, more accurately, it got through The Phantom Menace, Wild Wild West, and The Spy Who Shagged Me, all in the same summer in pretty good shape. Then I got to that one, and something just midway through the movie, it's just like, this is bad.
It was only created
bad.
for the surround sound.
It does give us 2 good things three good things, because Lily Taylor got a paycheck and she deserves a paycheck. Also Todd Field got a paycheck, and he eventually went and
Todd
made-
Field worked on The Haunting?
He's
He's
in
like
it,
a
yeah.
supporting actor in it for a couple of scenes.
Well, and
He's
he
out of the movie
eventually
early on.
went on to
Oh.
make Little Children in the Bedroom and Tar. So
Well,
that's
in the
pretty-
bedroom, yeah. I
He's
didn't know
al-
he did something before in the bedroom.
He's
Yeah.
also the dude that Quentin Tarantino was explaining why Top Gun is gay to in that movie that no one
Yeah,
has
like-
seen because it's excruciating.
we do get Catherine Zeta-Jones being very attractive, and Owen Wilson's death in that movie is great.
But yeah, no, it's like if you put a gun to my head and say, pick the better haunted house remake of that year, I'm going House on Haunted Hill.
House on
because
Haunted
it
Hill. Yeah.
It knows it's trash and it just revels in it. And Jeffrey Rush's
100%.
Vincent Price impression is kind of wonderful.
Yeah.
I will say that as a queer girl and as a queer girl who's into horror, I am very in touch with what queer girls who are into horror like. Like they're all currently getting queer baited by Wednesday. I'm sorry to hear that, everyone. But if you never heard that movie brought up, people went and claimed Jennifer's body, and Jennifer's body rules before they went after The Haunting, even though Catherine Zeta-Jones is explicitly bisexual. So that's how bad that movie is.
I will give the movie this much. That is actually in the source text. They could have edited it out. They decided to keep it in. So I'll give them that.
Yeah. And Owen Wilson's death. Owen Wilson's death in that movie is great.
Which they can take credit for that one. That's all of them. I will let them have that points.
I think I laughed out loud in the theater when I saw that. I think that movie, that bought me so much goodwill for that movie. It's like, you get to see a guy get his head knocked off.
You just go see The Patriot.
My mother took me to The Haunting. I think she thought I was disturbed by how much I laughed at Owen Wilson's death.
It's a funny death.
Yeah. So for my number 3, this is probably the closest I will. This is one of two I will say. I know we've been saying we were avoiding the fascinating ones, but this, I kind of mark this as a fascination. This is my totem this is my totem pick for bad remakes. And it's one where I am genuinely fascinated by the ways this movie fails. It's Roland Emmerich's 1998 Godzilla.
Yeah.
Now, I will first admit, I had dodged this bullet for years. It was actually thanks to doing the history of Godzilla presentation last year, I finally ripped this Band-Aid off. Liz was watching me watch this for the first time, and first off, I am fascinated. You go back to prior to this, Devlin and Emmerich doing Independence Day, and that movie is almost a perfect balancing act. They are spinning so many plates. There's nothing in that movie that feels like flab. It is all well executed. I'm not gonna say it's a masterpiece, but just structurally, it is incredibly well put together. By comparison, Godzilla is a flabby, ungainly mess of a movie, despite having a much smaller cast, a much tighter focus, and it still feels like there's so much that doesn't need to be in there. Matthew Broderick's character has no reason to exist in that movie, period.
Michael Lerner as Roger Ebert and his assistant, who's Gene Siskel.
Well, actually, that gets into one of the other points that I find genuinely fascinating. You're making a dig at a critic. You're making a character who's pretty much sit there as your revenge on critics. But at the same time, that is a movie they clearly did not want to make. And this isn't speculation. Like, you read up on interviews, they weren't interested in making a Godzilla movie. It got dropped in the laps like, okay, we're gonna make what we make a giant monster movie. And it's clearly they didn't want to be doing a Godzilla movie. So the fact they picked this to be the movie where they decided they were gonna fire back at critics is like
Ironic.
You picked the wrong time. You should have kept your powder dry on that one, guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I should have waited for Day After Tomorrow. Like, I don't know, Roger Ebert gets washed away in a tidal wave or something.
That could have worked, yeah. I mean, I still think like they never quite I still feel like their peak was the 1-2 punch of Stargate and Independence Day, but
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they
I
never
appreciate how Japan reacted to that Godzilla film. First saying, "Oh, there's a Godzilla in New York." No, that's not Godzilla. And then having him get beat in like 30 seconds
yeah.
in Final
Yeah,
War.
like mulch
both
in
of
Final
those
Wars,
got
yeah.
a chuckle from me.
The insult towards our Lizard King.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I will say as a child, when I first saw the images of it, I just went, it wasn't even like it's a full-blown not my Godzilla rage. I just kind of looked and went, and like that, all my enthusiasm's gone.
Yeah. Everyone, it's like giant iguana monster, not Godzilla.
It could be a Jurassic Park movie, but Jurassic Park already did it the year before in The Lost World.
Yeah.
I remember I grew up with all the Anchorage Blockbuster, for reasons that I never figured out, had like a whole collection of all the old Godzilla versus movies. So I absolutely grew up with them. And I remember like it was one of my first like, this movie is bad. I was like 8 or 9 when that movie came out. I was like, why is this doing Jurassic Park for the last 40 minutes?
Like I will say this was neck and neck with the remake, but that the fact that this was a movie made by people who clearly didn't want to be making it just edged it to the front of the line. Just for the record, I will say the one it beat was Neil LaBute's The Wicker Man, which is a movie that I feel like
Yeah.
it's not a good remake, and it's a movie from a guy who I feel like doesn't know how to actually make horror. Because it reads like an AI generated horror film.
Doesn't know.
It's
how
also
to
a
make-
movie that didn't need a remake.
Doesn't know
Also,
how to make
yes.
horror, doesn't know how to write women, doesn't particularly seem to like women.
You couldn't-
He's
you
very
couldn't
much
make-
hates women.
You couldn't make a movie like The Wicker Man today because it's purposely 60s and 70s slow pace.
Oh yeah, it is
Yeah.
incredibly.
You can't do that
70s.
now. Yeah.
Well, we had Midsummer, which a lot of people complain like it's so slow, nothing's happening until the very end. I'm like, well, that's the point. Go watch
I
70s horror movies.
I had a bigger problem with Midsummer. I think the worst, most horrible thing that happens in Midsummer is in the first scene. I don't think
Oh.
anything there is worse than what happens in the
You know,
family.
Put a pin in that. We'll discuss that once Todd is done. with
Okay,
his
fair
list.
enough.
I do have a thought
Okay.
on that I want to share.
So moving on, this is another film I'm going to be amazed if anybody here has watched it. We've already discussed several terrible sequels. I had a few that almost made this cut. Then something magical happened in October. I decided to pick the Hellraiser franchise for my deep dive in the month of October. For anybody who's not familiar with this is a series where after I think part 4 Bloodline,
Yep.
it was basically like New Line was literally just they were farming scripts that were unrelated and using them to just keep kicking the copyright can down the hill until they could finally get a remake off the ground. These are invariant, and this is falling out of a tree and having your branch on the way down, but no more so than the 9th entry in the series, Hellraiser Revelations. This is the movie that basically finally marked the point where Doug Bradley decided, I am out. Because they were basically like, we're rushing this thing out. You cannot get a look at the script. We need this out now. And he's like, went, nope, I'm not playing that. I'm done. The finished movie basically looks like a fan film. It's badly written. It has some sloppy callbacks. I remember which reviewer, there was one who actually describes the guy that replaced Doug Bradley as basically like the Asylum version of Pinhead. It is... In a month of watching a lot of really bad sequels, that was the one I came away from going, oh dear Lord, this is awful. It is just exhausting. Like 10 isn't like the
one before it I enjoyed. Hell
Like-
World.
Hellworld is like that's at least riffable. It is stupidly watchable, but it's not good, but it's at least watchable. But yeah, Revelations was the one where I was looking for things to distract it and was like, this is just, it's bad. And with that, we come to the final entry. This was another, which was almost a fascination for me. Fascination was what got me to watch it. And then I couldn't look away as car after car fell into the pileup.
Just like a New Hampshire highway when it ices over.
Tyler Perry's Temptation, Confessions of a Marriage Counselor.
Huh.
So I first watched this so I'm gonna put a spoiler out here for anybody who hasn't seen it. If you are that bothered by that, cover your ears now. This is a movie where initially I could have taken or leave it. I wasn't that interested. Then I heard how the movie ends. And the idea of going, wait, a movie made in the proverbial year of our Lord 2013, where a character getting AIDS is seen as a karmic punishment. It was like, this can't be real. People had to misrepresent. I gotta watch this now. It's so much worse. This movie is basically, it is still probably one of the most mean-spirited cinematic morality stories I have ever seen, because ultimately it is basically about punishing the main character for the fact that she is not just content to be a housewife to her husband, who's basically like a real-life Ned Flanders. There is just some baffling moral choice in looking going. There is one scene, I won't go into too much detail, it's like, wow, you just did this incredibly horrific thing and we're not going to comment on it. We're just going to just move on and everyone's getting no. Again, it is one of the most jaw-dropping misfires of morality play. And again, if this was like made in like maybe late 80s, early 90s, look and go, you know what? Dated, we didn't know better at the time. You made this in 2013. There is no excuse for how this movie turned out the way it did, especially as a established writer director. I don't get how it happened.
Like I always try to hold back on criticizing Tyler Perry because the man genuinely worked hard, and if you read about his early life and what he's been through, I'm like, the guy worked his way up, and also he established an empire in a industry that is still really not meant for Black people to succeed the way he did. So it's like I do have like a basic level of like, his movies aren't for me, but I have respect for what he's created. But then you told me about that movie and I'm like, dude, what?
That's actually part of why I finally watched. Like, I felt like I needed to give him the benefit of the doubt of like, maybe the internet's misrepresenting this. I'll give it a look.
Maybe this is the problem when people make a movie every year. Because Woody Allen, before all of his controversies, he would make a movie every year. Then he'd make something like Deconstructing Harry, which would have some of these horrible Jewish jokes. It's like maybe if you only made one every 3 or 4 years, like everybody else, you wouldn't have the need to fill it up with the crap.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think I did see Temptation with you, but I don't remember anything about it. But I remember I saw his adaptation of For Colored Girls, which is this really beautiful surrealist play that like it only really exists in its own medium, and it only really makes sense in its own medium. And then you see him try to like slap a coherent narrative onto it. I'm like, I hate you.
That is. I'm just going again. I don't like to usually say this because I think it's fairly reductive, but I'm like, I think For Colored Girls is not, if you're trying to adapt it, it's not something that can be adapted by a man. I really don't.
I don't disagree.
I think there are some stories where it's like, nope, that is a story that a woman needs to be the one helming that. And again, I don't like, there are men who have made great movies about women who are very sensitive to stuff. So I never like to kind of put that label, but I'm like, you know what? That's one of the few things where I'll say, yeah, he shouldn't have touched that one. It is bad. I remember, I think I pirated that, so I didn't spend money, but yeah, just, you have all those talented actresses in there and just good. What do you do with it? Tyler Perry, when he makes fun bad movies like Acrimony, How'd Taraji Get on the Boat, those are fun. Like something like Temptation, I'm like, that is like it almost crosses the line into harmful. Like it's like
there
it's
is
like
some
a
weird
track.
There is like a weird attempt to try and put some humor there with a character who after a while I just kind of started referring to as White Medea, because I feel like that it was written for that, and then they were like, okay, I can't do this, swap it with like, get this random character actress in here or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like some of his like his How Did I Get Married movies are like kind of guilty pleasures for me because the drama just keeps upping itself, but it's never,
they're soap operas. Yeah,
they're soap operas, and I can appreciate them on that level. But yeah, like I have still not watched Temptation, but like you told me the ending and I'm the story, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, I mean, in Wisely, it seems like he never tried to make a movie like that again.
Mm-hmm.
It has, to put it in the simplest terms, it has the weird misguided morality of a chick tract.
Yep. Yeah.
I will say that like some of my favorite bad movies, like modern bad movies, are those kinds of vaguely similar to those kinds of movies where they're like so utterly sincere but also so misguided at a basic level, like Collateral Beauty, The Book of Henry, Life Itself is unhinged. So those are the movies that I like.
Amazing.
Book of Henry is a trip.
Did anyone ever see The Life of David Gale?
No, but I have heard about it, and
that has a twist ending.
Yes, I have.
That has a twist ending that will destroy your brain.
That is, no, I have seen that. That's the one with criminal Kevin Spacey, right?
Criminal Kevin Spacey, that has an ending where it's like, is it pro capital punishment? Is it anti capital punishment? Is it both at the same time? That's another one where it's like it's ridiculous. Yeah, the last scene of the movie changes everything in a way that makes no sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I really liked Life Itself, like as a movie, because, and I mean this with every insult involved, I really feel like no human being other than the director ever looked at the script. Like it spends 40 minutes setting up Olivia Wilde and Oscar Isaac's characters. Olivia Wilde is already dead when the movie starts, and Oscar Isaac dies 3 minutes after they're done explaining his backstory.
I still need to watch that. WHO covered it, and I'm like, oh, this sounds insane.
Unhinged, and I love it.
I have gotten though. I have been more like, why waste my time on a movie I know I'm not gonna like? But you know what? If I liked Book of Henry, I'll probably like. Well, I didn't like Book of Henry, but if Book of Henry made me laugh, then I guess this will too. But yeah, no.
We
bad,
don't. We
but it's bad
didn't.
with
We didn't have a
feeling.
lot of crossovers.
Yeah, which I kind of like. I like the,
Yeah. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That's the
the
big
only
winner.
one.
Proverbial
winner.
reigning champion.
I did. I
Steven
will admit.
Spielberg's.
Yes.
I will admit, I did try to avoid picking movies that I thought Liz and Todd. Like, I'm really good friends with Liz and Todd, so I know what movies they don't like.
Yeah.
I nearly put Easy Rider 2 on mine. I'm like, no, Liz has got that one. I kind of figured no
Showed
one
you that, and your brain was breaking right along with mine.
was like losing my mind. I'm trying to think of what honorable mentions I would throw out there. You don't like Gaspar Noé films, Liz?
They're a little much for me. The one. Well, here's the thing. Going back to, I saw something too early. I saw Irreversible. Like,
Ooh.
There's never the right
Or-
time to see that movie.
Yeah,
What
and-
is-
My relationship with Gaspar Noé films is I came out of Climax and I ran into a friend of mine in the lobby. He asked me, "What did you see?" I want to see Climax. Was it good? I don't know. Did you like it? I don't think so. Would I like it? No. Should I see it? Yeah, you should definitely see it.
I have a friend who I've been trying to get into horror films, and there's somewhere I'll give her, but there's other ones where I will just like lean over to her friend at the theater. I'm like, yeah, do not watch that. You will not like that movie. Like she loves Florence Pugh, but I'm like, don't ever see Midsommar. You will not like Midsommar. Oh, go on your point, Mark, because actually you're not
Yes.
the first person to say, oh, the worst thing that could ever happen to that character happens at the beginning. And while what happens to Florence Pugh's character, I'm not going to spoil it, but she has a traumatic loss, is bad. There is something for me that just is very, like, the idea of a cult preying upon you when you are in such a state of grief.
Mhm.
And knowing that happens in real life, I'm like, I
Yeah.
think that's almost scarier to me. Like, because
My
It's
issue with it was I loved Hereditary.
Mm-hmm.
The Hereditary for me is one of the scariest. Like literally, it scared me, which most movies don't. I was uncomfortable in that theater, and so for Midsommar, which has amazing cinematography and amazing acting, and the great idea when she's drugged, where you really have to look at the whole image, to see what's going on.
Yeah.
I was waiting for something. I don't need it to be gory like Terrifier 2, but I appreciate that Terrifier 2 went the distance. And for me, Midsommar never goes the distance. It's just the Wicker Man again. Like with the bear, what they do with the bear that they highlight the whole movie is not that big a deal. There's stuff they could have done. I'm a sick person. I could have come up with something and with that bear that would be memorable at the least.
Oh, I see. I thought the bear was memorable, and there's a detail in there that I didn't notice until the second time I saw it in theaters, where at the end, and he is in that bear suit. You realize, oh, that's why they were laying him out to put him in the bear suit. Number one, they were
Right.
shortening him,
Right.
and then you hear like a muffled like scream, and you're like, oh God, he's
He's still alive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's feeling everything. But it's for me, I liked it because it was this idea of like the more subtle horror. It didn't have the
So I guess what you're saying is for you, the most frightening thing is that it's a happy ending for her in a way.
it's not a happy ending for her though. It's not.
The way she is at the end of the movie, she thinks it is. You know.
Yeah, but it's I
Yeah.
have always been terrified to fall in, like, cults scare me in such a way. So the idea of like this person's been through such a loss, and
Yeah.
there are people that see it as like, oh, she's perfect to come into our little
Right.
community.
Pray.
Yeah. For me,
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? At some point, I know my parents are going to die in real life. I have
Yeah.
mentally prepared myself for that. I hope it's not like in that movie, but what I definitely do not want afterwards is a cult coming after me.
Yeah. Right.
Saying, yeah, so that's why I find it like infinitely scarier than what happens.
Have they said what he's making next? Because I like him as a director.
Disappointments Boulevard, which is supposed to be 3 hours long with Joaquin Phoenix, and I'm here for it.
Three.
It's
Okay,
a dark
that
comedy,
works.
apparently.
That works.
Yes.
So I have this issue where I watched one of Ari Aster's short films before he became famous.
I know which one you're talking about, and I'm not going to watch it.
Don't watch it.
Yep.
And the problem is that he has this specific technique that he uses where I call it the Ari Aster two-step, where he basically couples a sudden extreme reversal of the audience expectations with absolutely horrifying content that makes it really hard for you to engage with it on like an intellectual level, and that makes you it basically makes it seem more inscrutable than I think it is. And I don't think he's a bad director. I think he's an extremely talented director. But now that I see him doing that, I see it every time that he does that.
It's like the light coming out of nowhere in a Spielberg film.
Yeah,
every time, lights coming where there are no light sources.
And it's like, okay, once you notice it, it's hard to not notice it.
Yeah, but I was about to say my honorable mentions, just because we are probably about 5 minutes left. There is this animated film from the early 90s called Happily Ever After. It's Snow White and 7 Dwarfettes. Saw it as a child. I liked it. I found it on YouTube, and I was like, I was a very dumb child. There was that, the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, abysmal.
Terrible.
There is this 70s movie called Cyclone, which Todd and I watched when we were just going through Amazon Prime trying to find like trashy old exploitation movies. It promised us shipwrecked survivors are on a boat after a cyclone hits and cannibalism happens. Barely. It's mostly just people sitting on a boat.
I love the look on her face. There wasn't enough cannibalism.
No, but it was almost 2 hours long, and it's mostly people arguing on a boat for no. It's like Lifeboat, only boring.
Nice.
Yeah, no, and
they can post her with a
Prometheus
dog
was
to cannibalism
almost on there.
One of my honorable mentions is another remake, which is the Swept Away remake with Madonna.
Ooh,
Madonna,
that's
yeah.
awful.
What was another one of my honorable mentions that I thought Liz would appreciate? Come back to me.
Has anyone seen Teaching Mrs. Tingle?
Yes, it's bad.
It's not only bad, but like the kids are wrong. The kids are the villains. It's kind of like the Home Alone movie. Like the teacher did not do anything worth getting tortured over.
No, I was gonna say the original Home Alone movie. Kevin's just defending his house.
No, that's fine. But the Home Alone that Eric referred to. I mean, when he
yeah.
told me that story, I had to go online and look it up because I was like, you've got to be missing something. No one greenlit this movie.
I'm gonna be honest. When Eric first said it was like it flips the script and it starts off with this couple, and first thought was, oh god, is it gonna turn into Straw Dogs?
Oh god. Sam Peckinpah directs Home Alone.
You know what? I'd watch it.
Another one of my honorable mentions is a 2018 French film called Girl.
Oh geez.
Which is
You sold me a
going to
2018 French film.
there's lots of 2018 French films I love. Portrait of a Lady on Fire came out in 2018. Like one of the most romantic movies I've ever seen in my life.
So good.
But I don't want to be this direct, but it's a movie about a trans woman that cis critics really liked and trans critics hated. And there's a reason for that. I don't want to go into detail because it's really uncomfortable.
Though, yeah, that ooh.
I would rather watch Celia. Speaking of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Celia Sciamma's Tomboy. Deals with that a lot better.
Or you just watch Titanium if you want to watch Friends movies about
Titane
trans.
is so great.
Maybe
Titane is not
transness.
for
I don't know what
everyone.
it's about.
Titane is so good, but Titane is not for everyone.
I'm kind of convinced Titane is like a Rorschach test. There's almost everyone's gonna get a little something different from it.
Titane is for everyone. Everyone.
Has
should
anyone
watch it
seen the movie
immediately.
Tetsuo?
Yes.
Tetsuo the
The
Iron
Iron
Man.
That's a hard film. I'm not gonna say it's a good or a terrible movie, but it's a very hard film to sit through.
The first time I watched it, it rolled right on me like, that was weird. I watched it years later, I'm like, oh my god, I love this.
Yeah.
I'm both impressed and I never want to see it again at the same time. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, the other movie that I had Crash from the 2004 because I think that's it's a very such a lazy film. But the other movie I will almost put on but didn't because again I go back to the animation is technically good, so I guess that saves it. Is the Anime Ninja Scroll, a movie that I hate with a passion.
Wow.
It's bad.
People love that movie.
Well, here's the reason why. So back before Pokemon hit and we suddenly had anime available everywhere, Ninja Scroll was one of the 5 anime you could find at your local video store. And
Yeah,
it
it was the first
became-
one someone showed to me, actually.
And it
Oof.
became a classic because of lack of availability. But when you go back and look at it, you're like, okay, the animation is really good. It's really fluid. The monster designs are really cool. But it's, again, it just goes back to, this is an unpleasant movie for me to watch. It's also
Yeah.
full of assault. And
Yeah.
again, I go back to, I don't want to watch that anymore. Like, unless I'm watching Salo, which actually has a message to it, I'm like, I'm not watching this. And it doesn't, unless it's an exploitation film, which is just honest about what it's doing. But Ninja Scroll's not honest about what it's doing. But yeah,
It's like, come for the superhero, stay for the forced.
yeah,
Yes.
let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, I was about to say, if anyone who's here wants to put their picks for the worst movie they've ever seen in the chat, I'd be interested to hear it.
Step right up.
Yeah, I'd like to. I want to hear if anyone else has like or was there a movie that traumatized you? Because again, I saw Blue Velvet way too young.
So perfect blue way too
Killer
young.
Bob in Twin Peaks gave me nightmares for years.
Oh,
Him
don't
crawling
think-
over the couch in a dream sequence. If you ever
Oh,
see
yeah.
that, it's wonderful.
yeah. I was
I don't
about
think I
to
can call
say.
it traumatized, but there's at least 2 films that were looked at and went emotionally. I don't know if I could ever bring myself to rewatch this. One, because I think the Poughkeepsie Tapes is a movie that's basically like emotionally being bludgeoned to death.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
I just watched that recently for the first time. Yeah,
And this is like a half and half. Last House on the Left, where for the first half it is emotionally intense, and then just the weird pivot in the humor in the back half. I just turned into. I'm spending the back half of the movie like Patton Oswalt's sad boy thing. Yeah, go on in with the chainsaw. I don't care anymore. It's all bullcrap anyway.
Yeah, Last House on the Left is
that's a hard movie.
that's a movie I owned for a while, and then I wondered why, and I just like, I'm giving this into the thrift pile because
Yeah.
it's interesting because it's Wes Craven's first film, and I think
It's got some merit, but
Yeah.
yeah, that weird emotional pivot in the back half just it drains the tank for me.
It's also just like, I don't know, the way Fulci makes people suffer is just a lot more fun. And a lot more creative.
That's true. I agree with
Whereas
that.
Last House on the Left is just, I'm just sad.
Yeah, the Poughkeepsie Tapes was a finalist for like before I decided I can't include movies where it's just like a barrage of horrific content.
Yeah, there's no story there. It's just what can I film to make you uncomfortable? Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Martyrs was the other. I know a lot of people really love Martyrs. I don't. I never want to think about it ever again.
So one of my honorable mentions that would qualify me for what kind of freak is this person? Back in my younger, I will seek out weird crap days. I watched the German movie Necromantic.
I've never
Mm.
seen that.
I'm gonna be honest.
I'm
I was
hesitant.
bored.
I'm hesitant to see that.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna be honest. Conceptually, it's gruesome. Execution-wise, I was bored.
Actually, back to your point on Martyrs, Ellie. I went through, as Todd said, like, I'm gonna find these controversial films, the most infamous banned films ever made, sought them out. I had a laptop and a modem and an Ethernet connection in college. I downloaded whatever I could. Martyrs comes out and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to watch this. And I always like, gosh, am I dull? Like, where's my limit? Have I just desensitized myself? Well, then I watched Martyrs. Martyrs is my limit. I'd watch Salo again or Sweet Movie before I watched Martyrs.
I think my limit the first movie that I finally liked this. I had a friend who was really into those kind of movies in college, who basically got banned from ever picking movies. And one of the August Underground movies, I finally just leaned over to him like, I'm not doing this. I'm out.
That's valid.
So I've never seen this, and it's the only movie that I think I'm refusing to see is A Serbian Story. Is that
Yep.
what it's called?
Mhm.
Yep.
That's a
Oh,
wise
yeah.
choice.
I
Yeah.
feel like knowing what's in it, that's the only one. And I like Cannibal Holocaust, but I feel like I'm never going to see A Serbian Story. You know,
Yeah, that's another one where it's like
I don't know how that got made.
I read the Wikipedia and I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I don't need that
Yeah.
in my life.
I'm not even opposed to like really horrible content. Like I will go to bat for Inside or Taxidermia.
And as long
I
as it's
actually-
being done like on a safe set where no one is actually being hurt or exploited and there are safeguards there, I'm like, fine, make your
I-
movie.
I just have this like cross guard of like, what am I getting out of this film versus what am I enduring to watch it? And
Yeah.
so many of those movies, like, you're so far on what am I enduring and what am I here? Why am I here?
I will actually kind of defend Inside because yeah, it's they're the
I like
graphic novels
Inside.
that are, like they're not for everyone, but for a large chunk of it, it's just a really well done cat and mouse thriller that has a
Mhm.
few bursts of gore.
Is that the girl from Betty Blue in that?
Think so.
Bernice? I believe she is. Actually, we did have someone, Octavia, gave their quick top 5. Their number 1 worst movie, Identity Thief.
Nice.
Number 2, Ginger Dead Man, which is a stand-in for all of my movies my friends in college suggested we watch as he loves their movies. 3, The Last Airbender, hard agree.
Yep.
Way to just destroy a good series. Thank goodness the series still exists, and we still have Legend of Korra as well. Ace Ventura, and then 5 is Multiverse of Madness. You know, I've heard a couple people say Multiverse of Madness is terrible.
You know,
Someone rescue Sam Raimi, please.
I didn't particularly like Multiverse of Madness, but man, that's not even the worst superhero movie I've seen this year.
Ooh, what is the worst?
Black Adam.
Oh, that's right. You saw that. Oh,
My brother likes to see these movies, you know, and he'll pay for my ticket. So what am I losing? Other than
that's kind
I
of how
will
I
to
felt
live.
with my brother. I asked him, Dan, what do you want to see around Thanksgiving? There's the Ghostbusters Afterlife, or there's Eternals, and he said, let's see Eternals. And I was like, well, I'm really glad you're not buying you're buying my ticket, and I'm not paying for this. And that might be the worst Marvel movie I've ever seen. I think
I mean,
it
just of what
is.
I've seen, I have to give this one to Thor: The Dark World, but that there's ones that might beat it. I haven't bothered to watch them yet.
Yeah. Alrighty. And with that, I think the library is wrapping up. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have a good new year. You can join Ellie and I and potentially Todd. We're still
We'll
kind of
see how the rehearsal schedule shakes out.
yeah,
in
but
January.
for best of 2022, we're going to have a lot of good choices. Ellie, I'm pretty sure Bones and All are going to be on both of our lists. Bones and All just destroyed me. That final like song and shot, just tears down my face. But yeah, join us for that. February, we're doing Jordan Peele Deep Dive. March, we are doing Setsuko Hara. If you're familiar with Japanese cinema, you're familiar with her. And in April, I am finally going to be doing a tribute to Roger Ebert.
Oh, nice.
And we're probably going to open with a dramatic reading of his review of North. All right. And with that, everyone have a good night.
Night. Thanks, guys.
Night.
Good job, Liz. See you guys.
See ya.
Yeah.